I was not planning on going a couple weeks before making the next video after that first one came out, but I did have a bit of a setback. So self-inflicted, I'm not going to dive into what it was because that's going to be its own video, so I will dive into that a little later on. But a lot of some similar symptoms in a new way kind of reflared and opened my eyes again. Some not really palpitations, but a rapid heartbeat or increased heart rate, chest tightness, headaches, just not fun stuff. So it took about a week and a half to kind of recover. But this video is going to be about one of the main ways that I did that when I was able to keep things in control. So one thing that has completely reshaped my life in the last year and a half, 2 years at this point going on it, is mindfulness. The first thing we think about with mindfulness is meditation. So, focusing on the breath, closing your eyes, sitting for a period of time. But mindfulness goes a lot farther than that. It's really about, this is something I had one of those aha moments like 2 nights ago reading. Mindfulness is learning how to live in the moment, in the present moment. It's quieting the things that are going on in your head, which as you get older, being an adult, there are thousands of things going through your head at all times. But the aha moment I had was just the memory of just playing in my grandparents' backyard with my brother and being worry-free. And it's not that we were doing anything fun. It could have been just running around literally doing nothing in the backyard. But there was nothing else to worry about. I can still, one of my meditative sounds, I guess you could call it, is just birds kind of singing in the backyard, which is also at my grandparents' house. That's just a place to spend a lot of time growing up. That was our babysitter. We were lucky enough that my grandma was able to watch us rather than going to a daycare. So one of the fondest times of my life, me and my brother just hanging out in the backyard and at my grandparents' house, running around with nothing to worry about. But that is the essence of mindfulness. It's not that you're doing something exciting, but you're getting the most out of every single moment because your mind isn't elsewhere. Mindfulness is bringing your mind and your body together to truly embrace what is currently in front of you. Especially as parents, we have so many things to do and to worry about that we don't truly embrace every moment we have with our kids. And not to say that mindfulness is going to make this perfect, but by being aware, you're kind of pulling everything in together and doing a little bit better, even if it's 1, 2, 5% better. You're there with your kids. You're physically and mentally there. You're not worried about work. You're not worried about finances. You're not worried about this or that. You're just worried about what's right in front of you. And that's, your kids or your parents or, whoever you're with. So that was my aha moment, was kind of getting back to that time in my life where whatever was in front of me was all that was in front of me. There was nothing else in my mind, nothing to worry about. So that isn't going to happen 100% of the time for most of us, unless you're training as an actual monk. It's just not realistic. But by being aware, by bringing yourself, into this practice, that's the concept of mindfulness. It's focusing on what's in the here and now, like I just said. So how did that get me through the last couple weeks? Well, typically, and over the last decade of dealing with Barrett's esophagus and the ridiculous symptoms with that, one little bit of discomfort, especially towards my chest and in my stomach, just this general area, could trigger a panic attack pretty quickly. So consistently asking myself, okay, what am I feeling right now? Whether it's some chest tightness, whether it's some shortness of breath. Not severe enough to be a huge problem, but reminding myself not to trigger that anxiety. So what's happening right now? My chest is a little bit tight. Can I breathe? Yes. Is my heart actually racing? No. Is it elevated a little bit? Yeah. 10, 15 beats per minute. So the mindfulness of staying present and not letting my mind, wander to what has happened in the past and what could happen. Am I about to have a heart attack? That's where I've really seen the return of my investment into mindfulness and meditation. Being able to not just trigger a worsening episode with something that wasn't going to happen. So typically, the worry of a situation, something happens and you're worried about what could happen next, is, I don't want to say necessarily worse than the potential worst outcome, but we do feel more pain worrying about the potential pain than the actual pain that we're feeling. And oftentimes, obviously not all the time, even that worrying amount can add up to a greater sum than that final destination that we're actually worried about. Did I think I was going to have a heart attack? No. Was it in the back of my mind? What if this? What if that? Yeah, but bringing that back. What is actually happening? Is my heart actually in that, extreme of a situation? No. So that was something that, was as annoying as it was to go through that. It was gratifying to see, you know, I am getting better. I am getting stronger. Things are changing for me. So one thing that you could all take for yourselves today, tonight, tomorrow, if you want to put it off, is starting this mindfulness journey, is starting the process of, taking hold of that anxiety. It doesn't go away per se, but you have a better manage on it. You have better control over it. So it doesn't control you. It doesn't, force you to miss certain things that you want to go see or you want to go do because you're worried about a potential trigger. And again, that was my life. Anytime I traveled, anytime I was by myself, what if? What if I have an episode? What if I pass out? How often did those things happen? I never passed out. I got close, but those were things I was worried about every single time I left the house, and I missed out on a lot of things because of that. So the process starts with, for me, it started with meditation, but it's the process of building your mindfulness, of building your capacity to follow your breath. And that's something I'm going to talk about and show you guys in some different videos. We're going to go through sauna use, we're going to go through cold exposure, but these all kind of circle back around to the mindfulness factor and controlling your breath, bringing yourself back into the present moment, and controlling that anxiety, again, and then not letting the anxiety have the power over you, which it did for the better part of the last decade of my life. So simple reminders to continue the practice. For me, that was the silver lining, just something positive I pulled from a negative experience, going through that little setback there. But some little tidbits for you guys to start with. There are plenty of apps, so you can go on. The one I started with was the Waking Up app with Sam Harris. I believe his brother Dan has an app as well. I think it's like 10% better or something. But I did the Waking Up app. That's where I started, just because there was a little more teaching. He's got a course that you can actually start with. And as you're meditating, it's kind of explaining what's happening, why you're doing certain things. So I did appreciate that. I did eventually transfer over to the Calm app. There was just a little more variety, and I was learning about meditation in other ways. So I'm not currently a Buddhist. I am taking up a whole bunch of books and reading about it and learning about it, and I'm fascinated by it. I love it. I'm grasped by it. I've heard people being grasped by these other religions before, and I never had that moment, so I couldn't really understand it. But this I am getting grasped by, because it really doesn't feel like a religion. It kind of feels like a philosophy and a way of life where the whole purpose is to just be a good person. Love and compassion are two things we need a lot more of in this world. And that's kind of the essence of what I've been learning from these books on Buddhism. So that's kind of where I'm learning more about mindfulness trainings, more about meditation. So again, getting back to the apps, the Waking Up app, the Calm app, I think Headspace is another one. There are plenty of guided meditations on YouTube. Especially if you want to start like right before bed. There's plenty that can put you off to bed, but I don't recommend continuing with that as your only practice. I love to start my day with it, and I've actually been reintegrating a second session shortly after my workout. I try to do it right after, but sometimes some things are going on, so it's bumped out. So typically first thing in the morning, 10 to 20 minutes, and then at some point early afternoonish, typically another 10 to 20 minutes. But these things, it's not just, woo-woo, nonsense for those of you who might be non-believers but somewhat curious. These will actually physically change your brain. So you're reducing anxiety centers in your brain, and just, again, getting a better grasp on controlling those emotions. And, the response that you feel over time will continue to compound on it. So you'll be a lot less reactive in your day-to-day life. Again, controlling those emotions. You just kind of see life a little bit differently, especially as you take the meditation and transition that into mindfulness. So mindfulness is kind of a training meditation is sort of a training for mindfulness, and you take that in throughout the rest of your day. So in these books, in these Buddhism books, they'll talk about sitting meditation, your standard sit down, let's meditate, walking meditation, drinking tea meditation, but really these are all forms of mindfulness. So when they say that, let's take walking for example, because that's something I've been doing recently, is leaving the phone off, no headphones, no music. You're walking, you're feeling your feet on the earth or on the sidewalk, wherever you are. You're seeing things around you, you're hearing sounds, you're feeling feelings that you wouldn't be feeling, hearing, seeing, etc. if you're listening to your headphones and just kind of zoning out and being in another place. So by being in the present, you're enjoying your walk, you are in that space as you're walking, you finish your walk, you kind of get back to your daily routine. But everything that you do, try to have little triggers to remind yourself to do them with mindfulness. Washing the dishes, you're not watching TV, you're not thinking about work, you're just washing that one bowl. Wash it, dry it, that's what you're doing. The more of these exercises you can compile, the more this becomes automatic rather than something you have to actually actively think about. And you get a lot more out of life, and you get a lot happier. And we've done some podcasts on this here to Evolve for those of you who are new to this. Myself and my wife were on that one, and we've talked about mindfulness a few different times. And on one of the episodes, I was saying, this was toward the beginning of my journey, but I was talking about how I just planted, it was like 50 or 60 trees at that time. This is our new house. So planting around the border, and just getting the same amount of gratification and joy out of just looking at the trees and just enjoying that moment, as I used to getting, playing basketball, pickup game of basketball. That same level of joy and excitement, which sounds ridiculous to say, looking at a tree versus, playing a sport. But when you fully get into this and you understand, the practice, you'll get it too. So it doesn't take much to make you happy. It doesn't take much to get the most out of life. And it doesn't take much to take your life back, take control of it, and stop letting anxiety and fear and anger rule your life. It doesn't have to be like that. But mindfulness for me and meditation for myself, that was step one. So that's what this one was about. Little setback, transitioning into a reflection, and using the tools that I have learned and worked so hard for over the past year and a half or 2 years, whatever it's been to this point, to see a positive improvement in a negative situation. So those are just some quick tips on that. This will be a quicker video. Again, I'm going to dive into different things that I utilize as tools. We talked about the cold exposure. That's going to be a fun one. We'll talk about training. We'll talk about the sauna use, just a general routine, and I'll break down those things in a little less formal situation. I know these have been sit-down videos, but I do want to get more into that vlogging style. So I'm just getting used to this, but I do want to get some content out there for you guys. I'll continue documenting and show you guys what I do, just within my daily routine in my life that have made such a big difference. And hopefully, again, this stuff all, helps you guys with whatever you're working through. But I'll give you my experience with it, my history with it, the tools that I've used, and hopefully you guys can feel some of those same benefits. So if you are enjoying these, please do me a huge favor, like, subscribe, comment. I'm happy to answer questions for you guys on here too. I'm also on Instagram at Josh Skutnik. So wherever you guys want to follow along, I am going to start being more consistent with this stuff. So appreciate you. We'll catch you in the next one.